Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video we are going to again study about agriculture microbiology. So let's get started. So previously we talked about Kingdom Monera. So in this video we'll start off with Kingdom Fungi and study about its organisms and types. So moving on to this, so let's talk about what is Kingdom Fungi and what are some of its features. So Kingdom Fungi are basically filamentous in nature and they are heterotrophic organisms. Also, they have a network of hyphae known as mycelium, and their hyphae are continuous tubes filled with multinucleated cytoplasm called the coenocytic hyphae. So this is an important point. Their hyphae is filled with a multinucleated cytoplasm which is known as coenocytic hyphae. And also, if no septa is present between cells, it's called a aseptic fungi. Alright. So if there is no septa present between cells of a fungi, then that is termed as aseptic fungi. Also, they prefer to grow in warm and humid places, and they grow as filamentous mycelia and form spores. Also, they are saprophytic decomposers or parasitic in nature. So some of the examples of fungi would be algae. So under algae we have lichens and some of the roots of higher plants such as mycorrhiza. So moving on with so some of the examples of fungi would be molds as well and also yeast. So we will just give an overview of all of these molds and yeast. So molds are basically which grow as filamentous mycelium which form spores, and also the hyphae are composed of an outer cell wall and an inner lumen which contains the cytosol and organelle. So this is the mold structure of the mold, as you can see. So their hyphae is composed of the outer cell wall and an inner lumen which contains the cytosol within it. Alright, and which is covered by a outer cell wall, and it grows as filamentous mycelia as all other fungi do. Also, yeasts are unicellular fungi. So these are unicellular in nature and their mode of reproductions are fission. Yeast divide symmetrically and budding yeast divides asymmetrically. So they are depending on the type of yeast, they divide accordingly. So moving on with, so talking about some of the major fungal reproduction methods, such as some of the asexual reproduction would be number one type would be vegetative. So under vegetative we have fragmentation, fission and budding. Alright, so these three are the vegetative types of reproduction under asexual reproduction. With this, so talking about asexual reproduction, so that was a T in between. It's actually asexual and this is asexual reproduction. So the difference between the two is in this type the reproduction occurs through spore formation, and there are different types of spores as you can see on the screen. So some of the spores are arthroconidia or arthrospores, conidiospores, sporangiospores and blastospores. So these are some of the spores that comes under asexual reproduction. Also under asexual, so this is a T in it. So this is a U here as you can see. So in the previous one that we studied, that was a T in it, TUAL. So asexual reproduction, the under asexual reproduction we have fragmentation, budding and fission. And under asexual reproduction we have spore formation, and we just talked about some of the spores here, right? So some of the spores are arthoconidia, conidiospores, sporangiospores and blastospores. So moving on with this, so talking about the sexual reproduction, so some of the sexual reproduction methods would be by fusion of sexual compatible haploid gametes. So these would be haploid gametes, not diploid gametes. So these multiply with the help of fusion, and the hyphae of opposite mating types fungi. So depend on the hyphae of opposite mating types fungi. Also the gamete producing bodies are known as gametangia. And their sexual cycle involves the following three steps. So their sexual reproduction depends on the three steps. Basically it follows three steps. So number one step is the fusion of protoplasm between two motile or non-motile gametes known as plasmogamy. So protoplasm, which is the outer layer. So the fusion of the outer layer of the protoplasm between two motile or non-motile gametes called the plasmogamy. Also fusion of two nuclei. So moving on to the inside, So the fusion of two nuclei, which is known as the karyogamy, forming dikaryotic cells, so N plus N. And next we have the meiosis, which is the diploid nucleus which produces haploid nucleus. So this is the cycle, as you can see. So it starts from a haploid stage, moves to the karyotic stage, or which is the fusion of two nuclei known as karyogamy, and then it moves to meiosis under the diploid state. So this is a simple sexual reproduction stages of fungal reproduction. So moving on with this, so talking about some of the more types of it, so some of the more spores forming. So under sexual reproduction, we also have spores in it, as same as asexual reproduction. So the spores are different. So the name of the spores are also different. So their function is also different under sexual reproduction. Alright, so based on the morphology of mycelium, spore formation and fruiting bodies are present. So here the spores are different from that of asexual reproduction. So some of the sexual reproduction spores would be zygospores, ascospores, basidiospores and deuteromycetes. So these are some of the spores that are present in the fungal reproduction. So that is a very easy thing. So you just need to remember the name of the spores. Alright, so moving on. So talking about some of the more inner parts of kingdom fungi, which is mycorrhiza. So we just talked about mycorrhiza and some of its types of fungi. So mycorrhiza is a type of fungi only, and it's a symbiotic union between soil fungi and roots of plants. So mycorrhiza is nothing but a mutual union of soil fungi, so the fungi that is present in the soil, and the roots of the plant. So it forms a linkage between soil and the roots of the plants, which in turn is known as mycorrhiza. So this is in turn overall known as mycorrhiza, which forms association between the roots and the soil. So basically it interconnects the two to form this mycorrhiza. Also, the fungus receives photosynthetically derived carbohydrates and growth factors from the plant, which in turn receives increased nutrient absorption as fungus takes over the roles of plants root hair and acts as extension of root system. So what happens is all of the, so as it acts as a union between the soil and the roots, so the soil around the roots of the plant contains fungi, and these fungi help in, so these fungi receive all of the carbohydrates and all of the nutrients from the roots of the plants. All right, so these receive all of the general essential nutrients from the plants, and in turn fungi helps in the increased absorption of root intake and helps in the extension of the roots. So they help each other mutually. So fungi receives all of the essential factors from the roots, and in turn fungi helps in the role of plant root hairs and helps in the extension of the roots. All right. Also, the soil fungus involved members of the fungi are Basidomycetes, Ascomycetes and Zygomycetes. So all of the soil fungi that are present in the soil that basically come under the kingdom of Basidomycetes, Ascomycetes and Zygomycetes, which are all under fungi. Alright, so which help in the absorption of root and help in the extension of roots. So with this, so talking about some of the kingdom fungi, what are its roles and different sorts of fungi that are present. So talking about some of the cellulose decomposers. So many Ascomycetes and Deuteromycetes acts as cellulose decomposers, which are some of the examples are Aspergillus, Trichoderma. So after the cellulose decomposers, we'll talk about lignin decomposers and then the pectin decomposers. So under pectin decomposers, there are several Basidomycetes fungi, and some of the examples of Basidomycetes fungi are agaricales. And under pectin decomposers, there are some of the fungi which are known as Rhizopus, Aspergillus, Fusarium. So these three are decomposer fungi or degrading or decomposing fungi, which helps in the decomposing of soil matter. So this is the cellulose decomposers, this is the lignin decomposers, and this is the pectin decomposers, and examples are given as such. So moving on with this, so let's talk about some of the important soil fungi that are present in the soil. So the most commonly isolated fungi from soil are brown rot fungi. So this is the name of fungi, which is brown rot fungi. Then we have white rot fungi. Some of the examples of white rot fungi are Phanerochaete and Philipia species, which produces extracellular oxidative enzymes such as peroxidases and ligases. So this is the white rot fungi that you can see on the top of a plant or some sort of a dead plant. So these are the mainly two commonly types of fungi that are isolated from soil. This is the brown rot fungi, this is the white rot fungi, which produces peroxidases and ligases. On with this. So talking about another type of fungi, which is lichens. So lichens are more or less similar to mycorrhiza. So we'll talk about lichens. So lichens is also a association or a symbiotic association product of algae and fungi. So it is not a single organism, but it's an association of algae and fungi, all right, which are formed mutually symbiotically. So some of the algal component and fungal component of lichens. So as it's a combination of algae and fungi, so let's just talk about the algal and the fungal component. So the algal component is the phycobiont, which is autotrophic in nature, pardon. So the algal component is phycobiont and the fungal component is the mycobiont, which is heterotrophic in nature. Alright. Also, algae prepares food for fungi and fungi absorbs mineral nutrients and water for its algal partner. And they also act as pollution indicators and don't grow in polluted areas. So these both algae and fungi help each other for their growth and survival. So moving on with this, so some of the microbes or plant interactions can be broadly divided into two classes. So microbes that live on the surface of the plants are known as epiphytes, and microbes that are present internally in the plant tissues are endophytes. So these are two types of microbes that generally exist. So that those that live on the surface of the plants are known as epiphytes, and those that are present inside the plant tissues are known as endophytes. So this is the kingdom Protista, which I'll be covering in my next video, which will be out very soon. So stay tuned and thank you for watching this video.